Hello, I'm Addison Morse with the Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and this is Cannabis ClipNotes with Shelley Rogers, the CEO of the Axios Accounting Group. Shelley is a well-rounded CPA and accounting professional, both for critical operational accounting needs and general business counsel. Her diverse accounting expertise includes tax planning and compliance, technology integration, as well as customized accounting services. Shelley crafts comprehensive solutions for each client's unique financial challenges and goals. She creates financial strategies that grow with her clients' businesses. Your accountant plays an important role in your business success. So, how do you know you have the right accountant for your business needs? So, Shelley, what should business owners know about their accountants?
Thank you for having me, Addison. This is one of my passion topics, just talking about accounting in general. So I appreciate the time. So, what is an accountant? There are generally three roles that a business owner is looking to fill when they search for an accountant. That's going to be a bookkeeper, a CFO, and then your true accountant slash CPA. So I'm going to go in to some detail about defining those roles and when you should be looking for each one. So the biggest difference that can be between a bookkeeper, a CFO, and accountant is usually going to be education, where a CPA is required to basically complete 5 years of education and then take the CPA exam. And that CPA exam is designed to briefly cover a very wide range of potential responsibilities or specialties. There's also a big difference would be the professional standards that are attached to the CPA designation. We are held accountable and have to, constantly take ethics courses and maintain our independence. There's a large set of standards that we follow. Where a bookkeeper and maybe your CFO, if they're not a CPA, won't be held accountable to. The other big difference is going to be just general experience, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So let's talk about bookkeepers. Bookkeepers are critical to have when you're running a business. They're responsible generally for the day-to-day transactional accounting. They're creating your AR and your AP and the bank transactions. It's probably, if you're going to look for any type of an accountant, I strongly recommend finding good bookkeepers. What do you want to look for in a bookkeeper? By the way, because anybody can wake up and say, I'm a bookkeeper today and I think I can do this. I can add and subtract and I want to be a bookkeeper. So there's some things that you should really ask about when interviewing people for that role. Ask them to define the accounting equation. What is the accounting equation? So it's simply assets equals liabilities plus equity. At the very basic understanding of that equation, every bookkeeper should understand. You can even drill in a little farther, even if you don't know the answer yourself. See what they say. Well, what's the difference between an asset and a liability? What's on the balance sheet versus on the P&L? Ask questions like that. Ask them if they've had experience in booking prepaids and accruals, and when they should and when they do, and what the accounting treatment is. It's very important that they understand how transactions flow between the balance sheet and your profit and loss statement. Ask them if they understand the difference between cash accounting and accrual accounting. That's also very, very critical. And most most people, if they haven't had accounting courses or they don't have the hands-on experience, really don't understand accrual accounting, and that can mess up your books. Like, just it's something awful to see. I could tell you stories. So if you are only shopping for a bookkeeper, you really, as a business owner, you really need to have a good understanding of these concepts. And you should also plan to maintain very strict controls over your cash transactions. And that's going to be your accounts payable and anything leaving your bank account. Make sure your eyes are on it. I cannot stress the importance of reviewing your bank statement on a monthly basis. Even if you just sit down and look at it while you're meditating on something else, the sheer fact that everybody in your office knows that you're looking at the bank statement can save you a lot of headache, and it can help um, prevent any kind of fraudulent behavior. Okay, so bookkeepers are generally going to charge you by the hour. They're either going to be employees that you pay by the hour, or they're going to be kind of an outsourced bookkeeper. And a bookkeeper will charge anywhere from $25 an hour to $75 an hour. It's a big range. It's usually going to be based on their experience. And I would say if you have a bookkeeper willing to work for $25 an hour, that control you need to maintain and that oversight and kind of coaching and mentoring that bookkeeper is going to be much higher. If you're hiring a bookkeeper at 75, you should be able to rely more on their experience. So that's generally what I coach around bookkeeping. Okay, next you have your CFO. So the difference between a CFO and a CPA is often your CFO doesn't have to have accounting experience. They might be more on the analytical side or the business operations side, more focused on, let's say, working with investors. Often I found that CFOs don't have any experience with the day-to-day transactional flow of accounting. And that's just something, it's not bad. It's just something to understand, because if you do find one of those CFOs that is not a CPA or doesn't have accounting experience, then you need to fill that gap in terms of the team they are overseeing. Do they understand reconciliations and what to look for? Are they going to be able to coach your more junior staff? So, just some things to consider. Let's see. Um, first, first question you have to ask yourself is: am I looking for a full-time CFO or a part-time or fractional CFO? And that's going to depend on how large your business is and exactly, I guess, what you're hoping to get in return from that CFO. So if you're going to hire a full-time CFO, I've seen salaries range from 200K to 400K, sometimes more a year. So there's also, just like your bookkeeping, a pretty non-standard, if you will, range of what it might cost you, and what you, again, the decision you need to make for that higher end. You should be getting more. That person should have more experience. um, if you are looking for a fractional CFO, often these days they're going to charge you a monthly flat rate for a set amount of hours. And I've seen that flat rate be anything from $8,000 a month to $15,000 a month. I've seen higher, but that's unusual. And again, that you get to a point where it makes more sense to hire a full-time CFO. If you are going to hire a fractional CFO, make sure you understand some key things. Are they a CPA? Do they have hands-on accounting experience? Do they understand the month-end close process? Um, Make sure you speak with references, especially those higher end charging CFOs. Make sure you speak with their past clients or current clients. Are they good with their communication style? Are you good with their communication style? Do you like the person and want to work with this person? Because the relationship you as a business owner should have with that person is pretty close. You know, you need to trust them, you need to be able to communicate easily, and you need to make sure you're understanding what they're telling you. If you have a CFO or any accountant for that matter who speaks to you in a way that's purposely over your head, or they just don't make a lot of sense, that's a big red flag, because often that may be what they're trying to get across. Some other things to consider: what is their reporting package? What are they responsible for providing you at the end of each month or quarter? You want to get that in writing. They're going to give you an engagement letter, or they should. Engagement letter is nothing more than a contract between you and your accountant. In that contract, it should state exactly what they plan to provide, what value they are planning to give you, what problems they are going to tackle, what type of analysis they'll do, how much time per week they will dedicate to you. Can you pick up the phone on Wednesday at noon, Wednesday at 7 p.m.? Or are they setting aside 1 day per week only where they'll talk to you? So these are things for your fractional CFOs you really need to understand. And make sure you get that engagement letter. Okay, finally, your third role in the accounting world is going to be your CPA firm. Now, when it comes to CPA firms, you're typically looking for somebody to do your taxes. So there's no way around our tax filing requirements. For the cannabis industry, it's critical that you find a CPA who has some experience either in the industry, preferably working with other groups, members of the Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, or as an example, here in Washington, we have the Cannabis Alliance. These are all organizations that make sure that you have the latest, all the changes and regulations that happen. As an example, this year, finally in Washington, the Cannabis Alliance worked very, very, very hard to lobby to have the 37% excise tax removed from our medical products. And they were finally, after 7 years, successful. So in the middle of the year, in the middle of the tax year in June, that went into effect. There's still not a lot of guidance. You know, we no longer have to charge our patients 37% on a product that already costs more. Uh, um, but how do we account for that? How do we report that? How do we stay in compliance? Your tax CPA should be front and center in that stream of information, and they should be keeping you involved as well and informed. Let's see. So that's what you're going to look for in a good tax accountant. CPA firms can also be very helpful if you need audited financial statements or just some formal package for banks. By the way, in cannabis, your banks are going to want to know exactly who your CPA, your tax accountants are, and it can affect the cost, or I think it will. I can say that affect the cost that you're paying, the bank fees, Because if you've got a reputable CPA firm behind you, then they have some assurance that you're staying in compliance, that you're doing everything above board. So that's important. So not only can they do audits or provide formal banking packages, but they can help with special projects like forensic accounting. Let's say you're questioning your cash flow, where can I make improvements, or has somebody been skimming? I'm not quite sure, but I suspect it. You should be able to, through your CPA firm, have a specialist come in and do that type of mini audit, if you will. Now, what does a CPA firm cost? Well, there again, the prices not only depend on exactly what type of work you're looking for, but they depend on how big your company is, how many employees you have, how complex your setup is. Just to give you some examples, a CPA firm that does personal taxes, that's going to be your lowest kind of entry into a firm. Um, Today, personal tax returns are starting at $800. And that's assuming that you've got all your records together, and it's just sit down and get your return pulled together and file it. Business tax returns, that's going to swing wildly based on how good your bookkeeper is. If your books have been closed every month and everything's been reconciled, your business return could cost you as little as $1,500. If you're bringing in a set of books that doesn't make a lot of sense, hasn't been formed or completed in compliance with GAAP accounting, it can cost you anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 to do that same return, because often the CPA firm will have to do what I call forensic accounting, where they sit down and they're like, what is this? What happened? And they've got to go back to January 1st and sort of reconfigure everything that you'd paid a not so good bookkeeper to do. So that's important to consider, how those two support each other as well. If you need an audit, audits are going to cost you on the very, very low end, $20K. Probably the average is going to be $50K. And that depends on how many locations you have and how complex, again, your business structure is. So that could go much higher, but generally you're not going to need an audit unless you have investors or are looking for some kind of outside funding. So to wrap this all up, regardless of who you need and who you choose to work with, make sure that you get an engagement letter that spells out everything that person is going to provide to you. Make sure that it spells out everything they're not responsible for. So a lot of times a business owner will say, I didn't know I had to do that. Who filed the property tax return? Who's filing the sales tax returns? If it's not spelled out on that engagement letter, you cannot assume that your CPA or your CFO, and definitely not your bookkeeper, will take care of those things. So that's really important. And I guess I have two number ones. My second number one is, the best thing you can do as a business owner is pay attention to what's going on, um, even faking it. I've worked with too many clients who thought that the accounting team, the bookkeeper, had everything under control, only to find out later that embezzlement was just too easy, because fraud only requires two elements. One is motivation, which we all have. I really need that new pair of shoes. And the second element is opportunity. And so opportunity is the only thing you can control as a business owner, and sometimes that's making your staff think that you're overseeing everything. And so they're going to think twice about trying to skim. So that's the best advice I have. Hopefully that helps kind of explain the difference between the accounting profession roles, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody else might have.
Oh my gosh, you brought so much information into such a short period of time. There were some great gems and a lot of, oh my gosh, I need to call my accountant and see if this is how this is working. I also really appreciate that you gave references to the cost,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that is just being realistic. And what you said, a lot of it sounds like common sense, but we do not do that. You
No.
know, uh, we really depend on the people who are doing our books and controlling our money to do a good job. Now, I think that you opened up so many more questions, but fortunately, this is a four-part series. So this is the first one with Shelley Rogers with Axios Accounting Group. So there are three more that will cover other relevant topics. And so thank you so much, Shelley. Also, you can watch this again on LinkedIn and on the Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you.